The views and opinions expressed by the participants on this show are not necessarily those of Stewart Information Services Corporation or Stewart Title. Before you make any investment, you should seek the advice of your investment advisor or attorney.
When it comes to real estate, everything matters. Whether you're a realtor, homeowner, buyer, or seller, Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title is here to inform, entertain, and inspire you. Host Bill Napick from Stewart Title will talk with guests about what really matters when it comes to owning, buying, and selling real estate. Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title starts right now. Here's your host, Bill Napick.
And welcome to the show, Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. We're glad you joined us. This is where America tunes in to hear great real estate talk, to hear about Houston, Texas, to hear about all kinds of things, because we always have interesting people. And as always, we are brought to you by Stewart Insurance and Risk Management and their president, Tom Carpentier, who leads the company in a wonderful, magnificent way. So we are glad you joined us. We have a very great show today, if I say so myself. A very interesting guest, a visionary from Houston, Texas, along with many more surprises. But first, I want to introduce you to a name you've heard around Houston for many years, Mr. Robert Sakowitz. He is with the Hazak Corporation. His name has been around Houston, and we're going to hear a whole lot of things from Mr. Sakowitz. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bill. It's nice to be here.
And it was so great to meet you at the event as we saw the movie Post Oak, A Texas Legacy, right?
Yes.
So exciting.
Yeah, the Texas Foundation for the Arts put on a wonderful presentation that is about to be shown, I think, in Austin as well at their public radio station.
Yes, on PBS. In fact, in addition to PBS, I found it and watched it again on YouTube. So it's already had over 500,000 hits. So I'm sure people are tuning into that all the time. You make a great appearance on that. And we find out so much about, people love Houston, Texas. I live here. I guess you live here, right?
Well, fourth generation. My great-grandfather came to Galveston, as a matter of fact, in the 1880s. My father was what they call BOI, born on the island of Galveston. And they immigrated to Houston because after the Great Storm of 1900, they were a little concerned about it. They did thrive. My grandfather and his brother actually started, you can see the march of Houston's real estate in a way with what our stores expanded to, because during that era, actually so few people know that early Houston was a struggle between two major developers. One was Jesse Jones, who wanted Houston to go north and south on Main Street, and the other was the Sterling family, who wanted Houston to grow along the bayou, Texas Avenue. That's why the Rice Hotel was ground zero for a long time. Jesse Jones won.
Very, very interesting. Well, let's tell people, first of all, they know your name with the store, Sakowitz, but before we talk about the store, let's tell people what you're doing now. You are the CEO of Hazak Corporation. Tell
Correct.
people what that is.
Hazak, Hazak, and you can find it on hazak.com, is a business strategies and marketing consulting company, and it's multi-industry and it's multinational. It's a very diverse company. Obviously, when we exited the retail specialty store business after $8 oil devastated Houston in the 80s, I started this company, having received a phone call from some friends in Toronto, believe it or not, asking to come help them with their company. And so I called a friend of mine at Arthur Anderson and said, "How do you charge for this consulting stuff?"
By the hour, I guess?
Well, I didn't, wasn't sure. In any case, it led to not only retail, but real estate development, consulting. I'm a business doctor. I help companies get to where they want to get to. And if you look on my website, you'll see it's a very, very diverse group of companies. I've done work with retailers such as IKEA, Saks Fifth Avenue, Hyder Barbuti, who is the owner of Highland Village. For 5 years, I helped him with the vision of what that should be, plus restructuring leases. And then the individual who purchased Town and Country Mall, Bob Yazdani, wanted some help with what he could do with it. It had various owners, the mall, and then Neiman Marcus had a lease, and then some other people had properties. Yeah. Metro National. The long and the short of it was, after a couple of years, we finally negotiated and worked with him to get it back into one ownership hands. And we laid out a plan for that and then flipped it to Midway, and that is now City Center. Also had a client, the Mills Corporation, retained me to help them with Katy Mills as well as development of Opry Mills in Nashville. Mixed-use developments and shopping centers is one area of let's call it assistance in consulting. A coffee company, which is the Fresh Brew. The Fresh Brew Coffee Company, which is we've just launched actually our own brands after having been in the business for 22 years for private label. We're now the largest vending of snacks and drinks company in the city, Fresh Brew Vending, as well as Fresh Brew Coffee, which is a lot of private label. If you fly American Airlines, you're drinking our coffee. If you go to any of the Sunoco 1,700 Stripes and A-plus stores, you're drinking our coffee. We have a roasting plant just off of 249, a 110,000 square foot facility. And we've just gone into the H-E-B and Fiesta brands stores with our own brands, Accolades and Journeys, with roasted ground as well as whole bean, as well as the single-serve K-Cups. Also on the board of a company that is a logistics and supply chain management company called DI Central. DI Central does electronic data interchange for over 400 companies in the United States. We have about 14,000 supplier vendors all over Asia. And DI Central does a lot of retail, automotive parts, got about 145 people employed in Clear Lake and about 325, as a matter of fact, in Ho Chi Minh City, Shanghai, Montreal. It assists companies in all of their logistics and warehouse management. Another company with whom I'm working did all of the scenario-based planning modeling for the Panama Canal Authority's expansion, and they got their $5.5 billion based on the competitive price route choice analysis models that are dynamic models. 7 fuel bunkering locations report in 4 times a day to these models. They did a CO2 emissions model, a demand model. The tariff and fee model has been totally changed based upon this. They've gone from 5 tariffs to 60 different ones based on different types of vessels because of the tripling of the size of the new locks at the canal. And so I'm working with them, trying to work with some firms, TxDOT, and hopefully talking to a number of ports to see if we can marry together the same kind of dynamic modeling based on different scenarios. If this, then that simulations, etc. So there's a lot of software involved in my consulting as well.
So it sounds so interesting, Robert. In fact, what you said earlier, that you are a business doctor, so that role has led you into all these great opportunities. And actually, the diversity of the opportunities, it sounds very exciting. You're having a good time, I bet.
It is. I'm fascinated by a number of subjects, and it's amazing how one business discipline can help another, even though they're not in the industry. So frequently, people want a consultant who knows their field, and that's all. And quite frankly, having been in the banking business, I was on 3 different bank boards, and then on the Federal Reserve Board. Having been in transportation, I was on Continental Airlines Board for 15 years. Being in different businesses, obviously the retail business and building our own stores all over the city, and in the catalog business where we were literally in all 50 states with our Sakowitz gift catalogs. All of that, it's amazing how a dimension of one area can be brought into another that most people don't think about. And so out of the box is sort of a normal thing for me because I bring other skill sets that are maybe commonplace in another industry, but is not in this particular one who is my client. And we adapt some new ways that way. And so the whole concept is to visualize, as you said, visionaries, is to visualize something that hasn't been but that could be. And how do you want to see something? Now, you might be a little early. In the retail business, I was very frequently, painfully, too early in launching a number of designers who were just not that well known. But I brought them first to the United States, and today they're household names like Courrèges, Yves Saint Laurent, and Givenchy, and Zegna, and a number of the designers from all over. I mean, I was in China 6 months after Nixon, been going to India since the 70s. So it's very diverse view of the world that basically can help companies that I try to bring assistance to.
No doubt about it. And what you said there, the basic disciplines that you've learned from this wealth of experience and diversity of experience, they serve so many industries. And I can't remember right this second, but I just heard it the other day when they talked about why they were successful in an endeavor, and the company came in and says, because we didn't know anything about it, we brought something new, we had the fresh eyes, and then it became successful, this particular endeavor. So
That's
you were
true.
so right, and that happens all the time.
One of the most frequent challenges that I find is what I call siloism, people who basically have certain silos of divisions, and sometimes they don't talk to each other. And even at the top, by the time it gets to the top, it's already distilled so that they're not getting the whole story, and they're not finding out what does each one need to do their job more properly, more successfully, more efficiently. And that kind of getting around their normal way of working. I had an occasion with someone when we were making a presentation with Endeavor Corporation, which is the company that is my client who did the Panama Canal scenario planning modeling. And we had a presentation. We were about 10 or 15 minutes into it, and this person said, "Please continue. Please, this is a very, very interesting concept for us. But you have to understand, I have to warn you, there's no one in this company who understands anything they can't see in their rearview mirror." Well, now there are a number of companies that are driven by what we've always done and how we've always done it. And so sometimes you'll have executives, not necessarily just the CEO, but the CFO or the COO, who basically does not concern themselves and doesn't want change. Change is difficult and change is upsetting. And yet we live in a world with the fastest changes today since the Gutenberg press. And basically, we still don't know all of the things that are going to be upended with our technology. And so to think in terms of what I did yesterday might be a very nice beginning point, but it has to be recognized as just a beginning point for a number of companies. Where does everything else impact what I'm now doing? Will my product and my presentation even be valid 5 years from now, much less 10 years from now?
And let me ask you, Robert, Houston, Texas has played such a role in your life. It's been the land of opportunity for me, you, I would guess, and for many others. What is it that you love about Houston?
What I love about Houston, I can easily express to some friends of mine from Boston. I went to college in Cambridge in Boston and still have a tremendous number of friends up there. In Boston, you would tell someone a new idea, and they would say, well, someone's tried that about 5 or 10 years ago, and it didn't work, so no, that's not going to be successful. You say it in Houston, and someone says, yes, someone tried that 5 or 10 years ago, but let me tell you how I think it might work. Let's see what we can do to change it, to make it work. It's a can-do city. Houston, I've told many people, and it was very, very apparent when we opened our store in Dallas. We had stores in Dallas and compared them to Houston. And the reason they were successful up until the oil crash was that we understood the culture of Dallas was different from the culture of Houston. The culture of Dallas is that it was built by railroads going from the East Coast to the West Coast and back, much as St. Louis, Kansas City, and Chicago were. So it was a pass-through city. So they always had one eye towards New York and the other eye towards San Francisco, East Coast and West Coast. And they were a marketing and financial hub of pass-through. Houston is a production-oriented town, and therefore it is what's the value of the manufacturing, of the intrinsic value of the production. It's not the marketing of it, it's the making of it. And so Houston looks at the details and looks at all of the qualities that make it of value for what it might be, not the financing of it, not the marketing of it. And the backbone of Houstonians is, let's see what we can create. I came back to Houston from having worked at Macy's post my college years because I thought Houston was the city of the future. I actually had a wonderful offer from Macy's to stay there. I didn't have the nerve to ask my father to meet the price that Macy's was going to pay me. But I came back to Houston because I thought it was going to be a city of the future, and I have worked to try and do that as much as I could.
That is a great quote. Houston, the city of the future. We are talking with Robert Sakowitz. We are going to take a short break and come right back after these important words, and we're going to hear more from Robert. And welcome back, Real Estate Matters. Your host, Bill Nambick. Today, we're so honored to have Robert Sakowitz. He is with Hazak Corporation, famous name here in Houston, and a visionary for our fair city, the fourth largest city in the United States. Before we took a break, Robert called it the city of the future. Well, here we are in the future again, right, Robert?
Yes, that's right. Now, the future am here.
It sure is.
And yet it keeps rolling.
It certainly does, and it's so exciting. I noticed that, too. I got here in 1982, and I just felt the excitement right away. In the meantime, though, let's talk a little bit about the past, the store Sakowitz. When we talked about the PBS documentary, Post Oak, A Texas Legacy, I recommend people go to YouTube. If you don't have PBS, watch that. You'll love it, the great history of Houston. But your store Sakowitz, I remember the part as we think about marketing and sales, you said that you and your father sat on the corner and counted the cars as a marketing experiment.
Very sophisticated marketing expertise.
To see if there was a market for the store, right? Tell us about the store.
Well, what happened, everything was downtown in Houston, as it was in most major cities in the United States.
And what year is this?
And these were in the stores came to Houston in 1910 and then expanded in 1915. Main and Preston, then Main and Prairie, then Main and Rusk when Jesse Jones nailed down Main Street as being the spine north-south by building the Gulf Building on Main and Rusk, and we were the first 5 floors. And my grandfather was talking to Uncle Jesse, as everyone called him, my grandfather Tobias Sakowitz, and he said, Tob, I want you to take 5 floors in my new building that's going to be the tallest building west of the Mississippi. And my grandfather said, 5 floors, we're a men's and boys store. We absolutely have no idea what to do with 5 floors. He said, I'm going to make it a deal that'll be beneficial for you. I'll put in the furniture and fixtures and equipment. You just put in your inventory and your receivables, and you lease that under the Sakowitz name to some other different kinds of departments if you want, and go out and do that, which we did. So from opened, incidentally, in the summer of 1929.
Wow.
And had this deal not been done, I've probably never been in the retail business because the crash in October would have wiped out what they owed on their expansion. But because of the deal that Jesse Jones had given them, they could withstand waiting through that time period in the 30s and give people credit. And years later, after I was in the store, I would have people come in and tell me, I remember when your father gave us credit so that we could buy a suit during the Depression, which we couldn't buy otherwise. Well, all of that had been facilitated by that real estate deal, basically. We then were we knew that as Houston was growing, and our clientele was more in the south and southwest of the city, that we needed a suburban store because the country was suburbanizing at that point. This is the 50s, post-World War II, the late 40s and the early 50s. A fellow from Boston came down and said, no, I want you to be an anchor store in the largest shopping center that is going to be in the Southwest, and it's the gateway to Galveston, because Galveston and Houston are going to get closer together, this fellow said. And he was, Ted Berenson was a developer from Boston. And again said, we'll give you a very advantageous deal if you come in here. He helped us move out of another real estate situation, and therefore we went into Gulfgate in 1956. Mm-hmm. It was all a very middle-class area at that point, upper middle and middle class, and it was a very good market and a very good learning curve for us for a next step up. That movement in 1956 literally changed our whole approach, because otherwise we would have gone to a closer in southwest area, which would have been along along Shepherd, where Battlesteins, one of our competitors, had gone. But Houston was growing so fast, and we couldn't get any real estate on Kirby the way in which the landowners there had set it up. And we heard that there was going to be this big 610 loop around Houston. We saw the highway department's potential plans. And that's when we said, well, let's go out further. And that's how we sat on the corner and we talked and ended up going to Post Oak and Westheimer.
All the
and
way
everyone
out there?
said, everyone said, you guys, they used to, they absolutely told my family, my grandfather, my great uncle, and my father, the poor Sakowitz boys are going to lose their shirts.
Because it's so far west,
so
the Galleria.
far out. It's in the country. It's in the country. And so ultimately that grew. We then saw Houston continually grow. We went to Town and Country Village, which was my first store that I actually designed in Town and Country Village, which was before the mall was built, and opened that in '67. And it was built like a country club. I remember talking about sitting on the corners and counting cars. We had to go with Dan Moody and Joe McDermott, my father and I, to all of these little Piney Point Village and all these different village meetings to get the approval of everyone, because they didn't want a shopping center on Memorial Drive. This was a residential area. Well, Houston's not zoned. We said, we'll build a country club. And the store was built to look like a country club. It was physically the same look with columns like a fine country club. It was extremely successful, but there are only so many A-class stores, A, B, and C, meaning what department stores usually classified for different malls. You know, needless to say, Post Oak and Westheimer is A+, but Town and Country was not quite the upscale. In other words, there were a lot of what was called curtained homes, and that is that the curtains were pulled so that you didn't see that there was no furniture. They bought the house, and then they would add furniture with each room as the years passed. So they didn't have the disposable income that was disposable at the Post Oak and Westheimer area, the Galleria, Sakowitz, that area. So consequently, when you looked at pockets of Houston, there were tremendous areas of growth, but they weren't all Class A. So we started what we called a Sakowitz 2, Roman numeral 2. And we built one at Champions Forest Drive and 1960. And then we built another one at NASA. So we actually ended up with downtown, Post Oak, Gulf Gate, Town and Country Village, Champions 2, and NASA at the high point. We had 6 stores in Houston. We then expanded to Dallas. We expanded, but let's talk about Houston per se. So we actually helped to build, but were part of, the growth of these various areas in Houston. And when people would say, how do you pick your locations? We would pick the locations, again, one of those wonderful things that my father said, we need to follow the tree lines. Wherever there are trees, people will develop homes.
Interesting.
Because that's where the better upscale places are. Also, let's look at what's in the garage. What's in the garage is very important. If it's a Cadillac or a Mercedes and
there's
a
disposable
pickup
income.
truck,
Yeah.
and a pickup truck, but it's a nice size, or it's an SUV, or it's a real pickup, and it's in good shape, that's your disposable income. If it's a pickup and his boat, that's not our customer, because he's going to spend all his money on his boat, not on fashion, which was kind of an old rule of thumb at the time. In any case, that was how we grew with the city, and the city grew with us.
Well, it's interesting. Those are basic marketing techniques. I think they could be used today, too, without having to plug anything in. No doubt about it. Well, give us an idea. Also, Hazak Corporation, let's tell people the website should they want to reach out to you at your company now.
The website is Hazak, like Harry, Apple, Zebra, Apple King, Hazak.com. And Hazak means be strong. And basically, my logo is an H with 2 sort of outstretched arms at the top and a line above it that's meaning we support your line of business, whatever it is. Because basically, I can look at different companies and try and assist them in numerous different ways. One of the things that is so important is that everybody's got competition, So it's a matter of people don't understand is brand building, they call it. There's no such thing as brand building. That's a misnomer that's been sold a lot of books for people. A brand is the result. It's the end result of what you have after you have constantly created a reputation for delivering something consistently, that is durable, that is trustworthy, and that you can depend on going back to all the time. That is what creates a brand. What people all too frequently say is, I want to build a brand. Well, what they're saying is marketing. What they're saying is advertising, a name. And there's a difference between building a brand and putting a name out there.
Very nice. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Sakowitz. Robert, thank you for being on the show. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Hazak Corporation. Thank you, Robert.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Bill.
We are going to take another short break. We're coming right back with even more. Stay with us.
Most people don't know that Stewart offers business, home, and auto insurance. In fact, Stewart Insurance and Risk Management has been doing that and more for over 10 years. And they partner with many leading insurance companies to offer great rates. They're a national insurance agency operating in all 50 states, delivering a broad range of insurance products. Whether you need a home insurance quote for a client's home closing or your own insurance needs, you can count on them. Call 866-845-4676. That's 866-845-4676. Stewart Insurance and Risk Management is here to help.
Please welcome Stewart Title's Sales Director, Mick Goodenough. As you know, sales professionals must keep learning. The Sales Professor is in. Here's Sales Minutes with Mick.
And as always, we are so excited when the Sales Professor is here because he talks about sales tips that apply to real estate, the title business, realtors, and anybody that's in sales, which is everybody. Professor, welcome to the show.
That's great to be here, Bill. Thanks for having me again.
And as always, I never know what you're going to bring forth, which makes it extra exciting. So I will start like we always do. What do you have for us today?
Yeah, it's always a mixed bag with me. Sometimes we talk about the motivations behind selling, and sometimes we talk about specific actual sales techniques. And today is a little more along the lines of the latter, and it's the importance of managing a presentation in sales. As most people know in sales, there's a standard or a basic framework of making a sale, and it's finding leads, qualifying leads, probing and questioning to make sure that what they may need is what you may have to offer, presenting that to them, and then closing the sale, asking for the business. And that's a process that can last anywhere from one call to many, many weeks or months, depending on your industry. So the biggest part, though, for me is when you're face-to-face in front of somebody and you're giving them a presentation that really is going to talk to them about the solutions you offer. And and you have to do that effectively.
Very interesting. Two components that you pass by there are listening is so important, listening and then asking the right questions. Right there, both of those are nuggets of gold if done properly. Those are tools that can be so useful if we learn to hone those skills. Tell us a little bit about listening.
Well, listening is dramatically important, and in many cases, most people, in my career I found this, most people do not practice what we call active listening. Active listening is listening to understand as opposed to listening to respond or reply. And I've fallen into many people do. Everybody does at some point.
No doubt.
You're listening to someone, but you're thinking about what you want to say to them, and you may be missing some key things in what they're saying that you could follow up on. And so that's where the technique, I call it mirroring or repeating back, is when somebody says something to you, your response can be something along the lines of, so what I hear you saying is X, is that correct? And when you do that, the theory goes, and in the practice as well, is they start to believe that you deeply understand what they talked about, and all you really did is repeat back to them what they said was important, so you know there's a connection there. So active listening is really important. But I heard a phrase once that what makes great questioning, or if you're a great questioner, is that you listen to the answers, because you cannot follow up and ask more questions unless you know which way the conversation's going.
No doubt about it. And just the term active listening makes you stop and listen a little bit harder because we've given it a label that says what it does. That's very important.
Well, it certainly is, and I know you practice that on the show. You listen to what your guests say, and then you ask follow-up questions, and that's a really important thing. It puts people at ease, actually. It makes them that there's a connection. They know there's a connection now. They know you are actually listening, and you're not just trying to sell. Selling is so much about listening and offering a solution that works well for both parties. I always say that the best outcome of a sales call is a mutually beneficial outcome. It's good for the person buying, and it's good for the person selling.
Very nice. And I'll tell you, that is so important. And when we talk about, as you mentioned, being on the show here, it's very difficult to do the active listening, believe it or not, because many times as I am listening to what you say or any guest says, I respond. But interestingly enough, and this is all a learning experience, when I hear the show after the fact, several times actually, when I hear it, it's like, wow, I didn't hear that before. And that's what happens when we hear something over and over. That's why I think repetition is so important in learning. But anyway, that's what I experience when I do this. So there's always something else there that you may not have heard if you were listening a little bit better.
It's true, and I can tell you, as we all know, it's so easy to get distracted, even for just a moment. And it's even a bigger issue now with everybody carries around their cell phones in their hands all the time. They're constantly checking that. So if you're in a meaningful conversation, and certainly in a presentation, that's something you never want to do, because it just it forms this disconnect. And really all this is about is this whole process of the sales process is about managing and growing trust so that someone will make a decision with their money and put what they believe the solution is in your hands as the person selling. And so that's where the presentation becomes so important.
And you brought up a great point. In fact, that now that we have these devices, these principles were important 100, 200 years ago in a transaction. No doubt about it. But today, that extra distraction of these phones, it really takes a discipline and a conscious effort to stay away from that and stay tuned in to the good old-fashioned one-on-one, eyeball to eyeball, and listening and responding properly.
You couldn't be more correct. And in fact, you actually now, I believe, stand out when you do not reach for your phone during a conversation, or obviously during a presentation that shouldn't be even part of the thought process. But when you are focusing in on them, even if, and I've been in some presentations where they're reaching for their phone, and by the way, that's probably not a good sign. But the point is you're still engaged, and engagement is what we want to talk about, because if you're not engaged, then you're going to miss something, they're going to miss something, and the decision that should have been made for the benefit of both will not be made.
And when you say the word engagement, Mick, I'm picturing gears meshing together to get something done. It really is that. And the engagement, I don't know about cars or transmissions, but there's a part where you're not in gear, but when it goes into gear, those gears mesh together and smoothly go to the desired goal.
That's exactly right. And the gears, that's a great metaphor, because gears actually serve to propel things forward more effectively and efficiently. There was a whole reason for the invention, and we could go down that cul-de-sac too, because I love that kind of stuff. But the biggest thing about presentations is, first of all, where people end up failing in a presentation is they did not prepare well enough. They did not ask enough questions prior to the presentation to get to the nitty-gritty about what that prospect or customer really wants. They did not put their presentation together in a way that is beneficial for the audience. And then here's the biggest thing, and I think this is true of most salespeople, is they did not practice their presentation. And I'm talking about practicing it multiple times, running through it as if you're giving it, doing it in front of a mirror, anything, so that you can know that you are not going to you won't stumble. They'll ask a question, they'll put everybody back on their heels, but you're ready to go. You have it all figured out ahead of time, because ultimately the presentation should answer all questions that they probably have based on your expertise in the market or in the trade that you're in. You should answer these questions ahead of time, knowing they'll probably ask them, and have them in your presentation. That's a really important fact with presentations.
No doubt about it. And I'm going to tell you something that really has helped me when you're talking about practicing it. I use an iPhone. I have 2 iPhones, and I look at them too much. But in the meantime, those iPhones, let me tell you, and I know on other phones you can get a program called Quick Record, I think Quick Record Pro. That's the one I use. And I'm going to tell you, the recording quality is exceptional. And what I do when I give any presentation, whether it's 3 minutes, whether on the radio, of course I hear it, 3 minutes, 1 minute, a 10-minute presentation, I just hit that record button and I go about my presentation, and then I listen to it. That is invaluable, because I hear things that, wow, I shouldn't have said that, or I should have said this, or I go down the checklist and say, hey, I did cover this, that, and the other thing. So recording what we do when we have a presentation, even for one-on-one things, I highly recommend. It has served me very well.
And it should, and it's a great point, Bill. You know, it's funny when I ask people why they don't practice or why they don't record themselves or they practice from the mirror, they say, well, I'm uncomfortable. I make a funny face, or I notice I do this. Well, that's the exact reason why you want to practice. You want to, this. And so either you can mitigate it or you can leverage it. I mean, in some aspects,
Absolutely.
gesturing and facial expressions are incredibly important to what you're saying. It put people at ease. But if you're doing things that make people uncomfortable, then you're never going to advance the sale. So you need to see those things.
There's no doubt about it. The same devices that distract us can serve us in a major way. It's just the discernment to know the difference. Mick, with the last minute, what else should we know?
Well, the important thing is to utilize a technique that I call tagging. I learned this from Daryl Turner, one of my mentors. I've spoken about him many times. And tagging is, as you're going through the presentation, you have to stop and say phrases such as, does that make sense to you? Are you with me? Do you understand what I'm saying? Or do you have any questions? You want to stop and you take the temperature of the call, because people are going to have questions along the way, and you can't just bulldoze your way through the presentation and go, yay, I'm done with my last slide. You have to be very thoughtful, and you also have to look at how they answer it. Body language is important. If people's arms are crossed, we know that's they're not open to the idea. They have some issues. If they're leaning forward, that means they're interested. But how they answer the questions to those tagging questions. Does that make sense? How are we doing so far? Are you with me? Is there any other questions you might have? Those are really important things to do throughout a presentation.
Very important. Taking the temperature as you go along. Very important information. Mick, tell people how they can learn more.
Well, you can just email me at mgoodenough, MGOODENO, @stewart.com, and as always, be happy to respond to any questions I get.
Very nice. Ladies and gentlemen, our sales director, Mick Goodenough. Thank you, Mick, for being on the show.
Thanks, Bill.
And welcome back. Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. As I said, we are brought to you by Stewart Insurance and Risk Management. And today we have their Chief Awareness Officer, Brittany Tacquard. Brittany, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bill. It's good to be back.
Always great to see you. And it's always nice to talk about insurance because we talk about visionaries. We reflect upon the growth of Houston, an exciting city. It's the city of the future now. I bet it's the city of the future 10 years from now even. But all these things need to be insured, right? Cars, houses, all the developments, everything.
Everything in real estate. That's exactly what our insurance agency does. We work within the real estate industry. We help everyone who's involved in that real estate transaction, whether you're a home buyer, a realtor, a real estate broker, a title agent. We're here to help you. You are who we are focusing on.
No doubt about it. And let's just remind people, there are two basic categories that you serve people. They can go to Stewart.com, the very first page of our killer website. It's great. But you have the insurance tab, that personal insurance and commercial. Let's say we're talking to Robert about stores. If they have a store, they can insure it with your company.
Exactly. So exactly how Bill just mentioned, you can go to personal insurance, and that's where you can learn more about home insurance, auto, umbrella, flood. I know that's been a big topic over the last few weeks. And then you can also go to commercial insurance. So again, if you operate within the real estate industry, we're here not only to provide insurance to you, but also to partner with you. We were just down in Galveston for the Texas Realtors Conference.
Oh, how was that?
It was great. And you can actually check it out on our social media pages and at Insure Risk for Twitter and Instagram, and on our Facebook page if you want to see how that went. And it was really fun, and we really enjoy educating our home buyers, but also educating our realtors. You're helping home buyers find homes every single day, and we're here to kind of give you a little bit more information as how should your customers insure those homes.
Well, that's right. And let's tell people the phone number, because they can counsel with your people that are experts. In fact, I'm going to tell you, you have such a stellar team, no lie, but also a special heads up to this, Will Elizondo. Now, he's been on the show, also on other radio shows. I've heard him. This guy knows his stuff, as all your team does. Will Elizondo. If he's listening right now, Will, unbelievable stuff. But they could talk to experts at your company. What's the phone number?
Exactly. You have to know what you're talking about when it comes to this stuff, which is very important. Will and all of our other associates know insurance, and we're passionate about it. And our number is 866-845-4545. 4676, or you can contact us through our website or at stewartinsurance@stewart.com.
And that's not to mention Michelle Steffen. I remember Michelle when we first started the show. This is show number 136, I believe. And she was on the show at the very beginning. All super knowledgeable. People love to hear the knowledge that you guys bring forth. And they could call that phone number and just talk. If they're not sure that they have the right policy with whomever, they can just talk to you and say, hey, look, do I have this? Because it is complicated. Do I have this covered? Do I have the water damage covered? Do I have flood covered? All these things. You can go over those details because there are many details in insurance.
There is. And just as an assurance thing, Will and Michelle have trained all of our associates personally, so they are working to be mimics of both of those
well,
wonderful
that's a tall
people.
order.
So
they are. I
it
mean,
is.
I'm going to tell you that they are very, very knowledgeable.
And that's
to
why
say the
we're
least.
so confident in our associates, because they are all trained to the top notch.
And we're approaching October, Brittany, and Stewart Title will be, as we started in Galveston, Texas, it will be 123 years old in October. We don't look a day over 90, but that's a long time, isn't it?
It is indeed.
But also your company, sometimes people think of Stewart Title only, but we remind them, and that's why we do the show here, Stewart Insurance and Risk Management. You didn't just start this yesterday. You're doing this, your company's doing this about 11 or so years, right?
Yes, sir. We have been in it about 11 or so years, and like I said, we've built our team and we've made sure that we've taken the right steps and have really educated our associates to be able to educate the market. And we have a very narrow focus right now, and it's to be the experts in the real estate industry. So we really taken our focus there, and we're really establishing ourselves there. I know we just talked about building brand. Well, I'm the marketing coordinator, so that is I understand that concept, and it really is about the end result. We have to be able to follow through. I can say here that we have amazing associates, and not till you see it for yourself and you get that end result can that truly start to build who our company is.
And no doubt about it. And the training is so important. And as realtors listen to this show, and other people listen to it, whatever your profession, training is so important. You have to, in this competitive world, you have to stay on top of things because they're always changing. Yes, the basic tenets and core principles of success and relationship building, a lot of them are still the same. But boy, there are so many things changing, especially in the world, the complex world of insurance with documents and this coverage, this waiver, that exclusion, deductibles, right? My
Exactly.
head's spinning, but you make it easy. Tell them where to call.
Okay, you can call 866-845-4676.
And you will make the insurance easy. No doubt about it. Go to Stewart.com. And Brittany, one last 30 seconds. What should we say?
Well, you can, like I said, we were at the Texas Realtors Conference. We enjoyed meeting everybody there. And if you want to check out our social media and see the fun that we had, I know we played a lot of great games, a lot of trivia questions having to do with insurance. So you can check all of that out on our Facebook page, Stewart Insurance and Risk Management, or on our Twitter and Instagram at Insure Risk.
And also, I'll tell realtors out there, if they have a class, they have real estate meetings every week, most companies, and if they would like you to speak at their meeting to talk about insurance, take a section in maybe flood or whatever specialty of the insurance, you'll be able to do that, right?
That's also what we're here for. Like we said, we're here to be partners with our real estate brokers, real estate agents. We're here to educate you.
Very nice. Thank you, Brittany Tacquard, Stewart Insurance and Risk Management. We're coming right back with even more. Stay with us.
If you've been in the real estate industry for any length of time, you know unexpected and costly events can happen. Safeguard yourself against the unexpected with Real Estate Errors and Omissions Insurance, or E&O, through Stewart Insurance and Risk Management. Not all E&O insurance policies are created equal. How confident are you that your current E&O policy fully protects you? Stewart Insurance and Risk Management offers expertise in the real estate industry and tailors your coverage to correctly manage your risk. With Stewart Insurance and Risk Management, facing the unexpected just became a lot easier. Safeguard your future with real estate E&O insurance through Stewart Insurance and Risk Management. Call today at 866-845-4676. That's 866-845-4676. Or email us at stewartinsurance@stewart.com to request tailored insurance options for you and your business.
And welcome back. Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. Boy, you know, we talk about legends. This is a great show. Robert Sakowitz, Mick Goodenough, the sales professor, all kind of great things. And now he is back, Robert Sakowitz. Robert, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. It's great to be back,
Super
Bill.
cool, man. With the last few minutes here, we've talked about so many things in a quick period of time. But tell us some of the last things you want to bring forth before the show's over.
I think an awful lot of people have a tendency to not appreciate our own city. Houston, for some strange reason, many Houstonians don't give the city the credit it deserves, and we're just beginning to sort of feel comfortable in our own skin to do that. But we've got to go back a long time to the 60s, literally, when what was then Chamber of Commerce, which is now segued into the Greater Houston Partnership, ran an analysis of what is necessary with a national company, what is necessary to bring companies to Houston. And that study showed much of the same that's today. People are concerned about education, they're concerned about a good labor force being safe, and people living in safety, low crime. They were interested in their quality of life. Well, quality of life included culture. Basically, culture in the arts, performing and visual arts and all of those things, was getting short shrift. We ran an analysis and found in the study that literally 3% of the funds necessary to run the big seven, the Museum of Fine Arts, the Symphony, the Ballet, the Opera, were coming from corporations. So we actually started investigating and discovered that Houstonians didn't know what we had. I think the Convention and Visitors Bureau has now done a great job in trying to familiarize people with what it is that we have. But Houstonians need to go out and see their city and see how rich it is. It is just because they're the ambassadors for the city, every Houstonian. And if you go into a room or have a dinner party, probably 1 or 2 out of 10 or 20 are natives. They're very, very few by comparison who actually were born here. So many people have come here because so many people find good jobs here. So many people have come to visit or come for business. They never thought about coming on a vacation for a long time. Now they do, but they didn't. And they liked it so much they stayed. The one component about our city is people. The positive thing about the diversity of this city. I've gone to, because I as a result of that same thing I talked to you about with the Convention Bureau and the same thing that happened with the Chamber of Commerce, we ended up starting something that ended as the Houston International Festival. And that festival promulgated different cultures. And don't ever think culture and multifarious cultures are not important, because literally culture eats data and strategy for breakfast every morning.
Well, on that note, Robert, thank you so much for being on the show. Let's tell people how they can reach you one more time, please.
Well, they can reach me on my email at Sakowitz, RSAKOWITZ at Hazak, HAZAK.com, or just go to my website and you'll see about Robert Sakowitz and what I do. The website is Hazak.com.
Very nice. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
And Brittany, tell us one more time, Stewart Insurance and Risk Management, how can they reach you?
They can reach us by calling 866-845-4676.
Or go to Stewart.com, right?
Yes.
No doubt about it. Well, thank you all for listening, and thank you to our great guests. Great information. We hope Mr. Sakowitz comes back again to talk more. There's so much to cover. In the meantime, you have been listening to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title, your host, Bill Nampig, on this radio adventure, show number 136, if I'm counting with both fingers or both hands. So go to Stewart.com/Houston. You can hear all the shows, all 136. Stewart.com/Houston. Once again, Stewart.com. Easy to remember, /Houston, or even go to Bill Nampig Radio Shows, my YouTube channel, where you can see the great guests. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.